Hey everybody, welcome to the Unshakeable Show. It's great to have you with us and joining with us tonight. We have some very special guests. In fact, these are the guests that have come, if we can say that word, from afar. They're not in the UK, they're in Vancouver, in Canada, and we have John and Helen Burns with us. Hey guys, great to have you with us.
It's great to be with you. Yeah. Isn't it amazing technology that we can do this?
It is, yeah. How are you guys doing in lockdown now?
We're fine. Are we fine, John?
We're actually loving this, because we're in our favorite place in the world, right here at home, and we're with each other, we're together, and I kind of feel bad that I feel so good because I know there's so many people in the world that are hurting and very inconvenienced, but we're really having a great time right now.
Good for you.
It sounds like too light.
It is a light thing for me. I told you, I'm feeling bad that I feel so good. I get to golf every day. Our golf course is back open again. So I'm out there early in the morning, running, golfing. Like this morning, I played 18 holes and it takes me an hour 30. So I love it.
I wonder if he's going to like it when I bring up the suggestion. Can we take on the garage this week? Because it really needs deliverance. The rest of the house has been ship-shape, but his garage needs deliverance. So maybe he won't like being home with me that much.
Pray for us. Pray for us.
Yeah, we will.
I was going to say, what else has changed for you? But maybe this weekend is the biggest change when you get on to it. But you're not going to be able to travel, or are things changed for you? Your normal kind of schedule?
Yeah. We were traveling so much in this last year, and even the first part of January, we were gone, I don't know, maybe 50% or more of the time, possibly 60% of the time. So for it to come to a screeching halt feels very different, and for the foreseeable future. So we're kind of looking, right now we're doing great. We'll see how we're doing in a few, maybe 6 more months of not getting out of here. But,
instead of traveling, we're doing a lot of this. With friends all over the world. So even though we've never been more grounded and more isolated, it seems like we've never been more connected either. It's interesting.
Yeah. So was the last international trip you did was to us, yes? Is that right?
I think.
No, it was very close.
Very close.
So we were home for 2 days and then went to New Zealand. And then John came home and I went on to Australia. And while I was in Australia, everything was unraveling. I was there with my daughter at Color Conference, and she spent most of Color Conference, because she's our lead pastor today. Yeah. So she was spending so much time putting a contingency plan in place, because now we couldn't meet, it was just happening so quickly. So we came home and then had to isolate. And and the rules were still pretty strict around here, though, compared to some countries. We're doing well. Right. But we were glad to come to Cambridge. But this is the thing. I fell in love with your city and with your church, and I can't bear the thought of that I can't get back there to explore it more. So they better lift the ban.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for that reason.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I believe you saw Margaret while you were over in Colour. We had her on the show a few weeks back. And you had a good time together.
I'm realizing a lot of people we know you and adore you. I love that.
That's good.
Yeah.
So when you were with us, we were doing a series, or just starting it, Love, Sex and Relationships, and we got you in as the leadership, as the Love, Sex and Relationship Gurus, because you do a program and have done for many years, don't you, on Hillsong Channel and other places. But I think you call yours Sex, Love and Relationships.
Yes.
So we just put the love first when we did it. We weren't brave enough.
I prefer Love, Sex, and Relationships, but I think it's boys that are picking the name for Hillsong. And anyhow.
There you go.
Yeah.
So any tips for us in that big picture? Now we're in lockdown, of how important relationships are. People are thrown together 24/7. Any advice you could give to the people listening in on relationships?
Well, I think it's really interesting that now it's almost like you said, we're locked down. We're forced to figure this thing out, because the most important part of life is relationships. And a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, everybody has challenges with relationships. There's no such thing as easy relationships, but a lot of people actually don't want to go through trying to figure out how to make it work. So what do? They escape. And a lot of them escape to maybe jobs and businesses and outside relationships. And in that, they get their reward from other places. But it's interesting now, many people are isolated together. And I call it a pressure cooker.
Yep.
And you know what pressure cookers do? When you put something in a pressure cooker, it just speeds up everything. And the end result is it's supposed to cause it to be more tender, tenderize it. And I don't know if you can apply that. I think you can to relationships, but the fact is we don't have a choice. We have got to figure out how to make this thing work.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting. I was on a meeting with someone recently. There was a bunch of women online. Some were married, some had young children. And it was just this conversation, and they were just throwing questions out. And so the sex question came out. All of a sudden now it's like, we have teenagers in the house, or suddenly it's like we used to be able to send them to youth group on Friday night, or suddenly they're not going anywhere. So have you got any creative tips? And it's interesting because I said a long time ago, I said, John and I have always been advocates for have a really good lock on your door, whether you're in a lockdown or not. It's just a smart thing to do because I think it just gives you a bit of ease of mind. But even maintaining healthy sexuality, I think, in your relationship, if you're married during the season, is very, very important. And if you have young children and you're homeschooling all day, I mean, the pressure cooker, like John talked about, it's real. The struggle is real. And so we think, oh, we'll just be spontaneous. But I've discovered that people say, it's hard. And so I'm like, create plans, have a strategy, figure it out. We can get creative. We're masters of creativity. Is it more challenging? Absolutely. But it's essential. So get creative with it. And then I said, don't put all the pressure on one person to constantly be the creative one. I think, to actually both partners in this relationship take responsibility, because this is an area that's been very challenged. And when all the other things are going on and finances are challenging, often we forget to take care of one another, even emotionally or sexually, just maintain that closeness. So everything's ramped up, but I think with a creative mind and a willingness, it's amazing what we can come up with.
Very good. That's
good.
true.
Very good.
You going? Go ahead.
Shall I go next?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. I was going to change the topic a little bit, talking about, the pressure cooker there, but the pressure cooker when maybe there's an extra pressure with loss and grief that can be happening in households. Not only, loss or grief of relationships and maybe people that you've lost or that are dear to you, but also maybe the loss of jobs or loss of finances, like you say, just changes in circumstances. Some kind of tips of how we can negotiate that a little bit?
Well, I think all of that actually demands that we learn how to communicate. We learn how to have those conversations where you're able to just take the cork off, and let the pressure out. And that's what those things end up being. They end up being something that causes us emotionally to react, to respond, and it causes pressure. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with that. And so some stuff it down and they just don't talk about it. And they're a little bit surprised when at a moment when they didn't want it or look forward to it, there's this explosion and all this stuff comes out the wrong way. It's kind of what the Bible talks about in Hebrews about, bitterness. We need, and that to me is emotions that aren't dealt with, that become kind of tainted and old and rotten, and all of a sudden it explodes out. I think the important thing is in everything like that, whether it's you've had a great loss, or you're going through this separation from job, or even, there's a lot of mental illness that is really coming to the forefront right now. And I think what a pressure cooker does is it causes those fissures in the concrete of your relationship, those cracks, to really be exposed. And that's why we need to learn how to have those conversations. And those conversations, maybe you're in a household where there's there's, you know, a number of kids around. You need to find how you can be creative to get to that place where just the two of you can talk and just, how are you? I just want to, you know, catch up. Tell me what's going on, and allow that person just to open and talk.
I think one of the most important things in this season is to learn how to ask for help. That I think has come up often, I've found in conversations, is people like, I'm afraid to ask for help from somebody because they're already carrying enough. It feels like there's enough burden on them to add one more thing of like, I'm not okay. Feels like that's unfair. And yet you're not serving your relationship if you don't ask for help. And so I think how we ask for it rather than demand it or just think you should know I need help, because both aren't working. But to ask in a way that says, I just want you to know I'm not okay and I could really use your help with this is really, really important, because asking for help to me is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. I think maybe our timing, our spirit of what we're carrying before we ask for the help, make sure we're asking in a spirit that genuinely invites people into the conversation, because often we put a wall up or we have this expectation. So know what you want and what you need and learn how to ask for it, or just have the courage to ask for it, not demand it.
Very good.
Helen, when you were here, I remember you talking about the grandchildren coming round and how you love having a full house. But of course, that's changed. So that's a loss in some ways. What are you doing to compensate with that? And how are you keeping in contact with them?
Good question.
She's only got me, so pray for me.
No, we're lots of FaceTimes. We're definitely doing lots of FaceTimes and staying connected. I'm sending lots of funny photos and videos of their grandfather to them, because he's given me no end of opportunity during this season. Everything I find humorous that he's been doing. So he's been willing and compliant so far, but anyhow. But yesterday, for example, because I'm not gonna lie, I've been emotional. But that's been a hard one for me, because we travel so much that when I come home, it is one of the greatest joys of my life to just be with them. So suddenly they're not there. So yesterday I got a text from one of my granddaughters, Gracie, and she's texting me, and she's 15. And she said, "What are you doing?" And usually when she says that, it's kind of want to chat, have a FaceTime. And so I got back to her and I said, "Oh, I'm just hanging out here. Want to FaceTime?" And she said, "Yeah, okay, I'll call you in a few moments." And so then she FaceTimes me about 30 seconds later. And I noticed she is right outside my house where she's FaceTiming. And I just burst into emotion, you know, and I'm like, get up here. I hung up on her. And so we totally socially distanced, probably broke the rules, but we did nothing bad. We just did everything exactly as it should be. But seeing them physically, I didn't get to hug them, but having them and I'm like, can I feed you? Can I do anything? But we just hung out. We sat really far apart, had a drink together, and, you know, but having them in my presence, I can't even tell you what that meant. It was so healing. And so I would have to say that's one of the things that I miss the most. I walked into our church building after isolating, and John and I did a video for church. But again, everything is so distant and spaced out. It's all done very properly, and with, you know, all the hygiene has been taken care of as far as cleaning everything. But I walked in the church facility, saw some of the staff, and just immediately started to cry, because I'm an extrovert. Right. I love my husband, I really do, but I thrive in the community with people.
She's trying to tell you that I'm not enough for her.
Well, obviously you are. I'm thriving, but I really miss people. Gosh, I miss people.
Are you an extrovert, John, or introvert?
Introvert. I am really good alone. I love my alone time, you know, but I love people. So you know, when I get with people, I love it. But my choice would be alone first.
Yeah.
That's true. But he's married to me, so he rarely has that privilege.
Except on the golf course, obviously.
No, there's nobody out there.
All by myself.
He goes all by himself. He doesn't golf with another person. That's where he's the most loner. He goes early in the morning and golfs by himself. He doesn't golf with people hardly ever. And I just think, what a waste.
But I run. I speed golf. So nobody wants to play with me.
Okay, so I'm calling you out right now. You have so much opportunity to golf with other people, but you rarely do. Because he prefers
What's the
to
next
be by
question,
himself.
guys?
Well, the next question is, an hour and a half running around a golf course to do 18 holes is amazing. I mean,
It is.
I'm getting in good shape, yes.
I bet you are. I bet you are. I was
talking.
talking to an introvert the other day, and they said to me, they are an introvert, but for the first time ever in their life, they are missing hugs because it's forced on them now, where it was their choice before. Now they feel, I do want to be with people. So, I mean, no one's one way or the other 100%, are they? We all fit somewhere on the spectrum.
I heard, I think it was Jeff and Kay Lucas was telling us how they're keeping in contact with their grandchildren as they're doing FaceTime, but the grandchildren are reading to them. So they do their reading practice, and the grandkids are reading to the grandparents, and so every day they read a story to them. I thought that was really a nice idea. So
yeah, that's great. What I'm loving is my grandkids keep coming to me for all of the questions because they're not in school, they're homeschooling. So every question they have about science or math or music or anything, they come to me, and I quite enjoy answering everything.
Very good.
He had some, it was a grade 11 math, and he comes back and, because it's all new math to me. I don't know. And he goes, I still got it.
So how is the church doing? And what do you think is the future post-COVID-19 church? What do you think will be different?
Well, I really think this could be and should be an opportunity for the church to really take some strides forward. Why? Well, because some of the things that we used to hang our hat on was like how many people are sitting in the church, which really isn't the most important thing. It's how many people that are connected to each other and to God. That's what church is really all about. And we took away so many, kind of stripped away so much of the outside stuff. It's like Hebrews 12:1 says, since we've got such a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, strip away all the stuff we don't need, and let's run the race with our eyes on the prize. And that's what's happening right now. And I think that if we embrace this properly, instead of just can't wait till it's over with and let's just get through this, but if we embrace it properly, on the other side, we're going to find a lot more disciples. And disciples are disciples only when they make disciples. And so instead of sitting and just listening and letting the professional Christian do all the work, now it's become every Christian has to partake and has to do the work themselves. And so I think that the opportunity is great. I don't know how long this is going to last, but when we come out of it, I hope we don't throw away some of the good things that we've learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very good.
Yeah, we've got to learn.
Sorry. It's been fun watching the church because I think one of the things is absolutely community is growing. And I'm looking at even our daughter who's leading the church today. Her and her team, and we're part of it, but she's leading it. Just watching how they have been very creative and intentional. I feel like so much of the language of what they've been studying or what they've noticed God leading them into has been such a setup for such a time as this. And it's beautiful to see how God like I remember sitting in we were at Color together, and Angela was there with me, and we knew what we were coming home to, but suddenly she was sitting on the bed and she goes, Mom, I just thought about my vision. She taught Vision Sunday, which was about a Genesis year, about it's new, it's fresh, it's different. And she said, I don't mean that we're throwing away the past, but I know there's something. God gave her the word. And suddenly everything makes sense. And what they were doing with an online presence and how we've been moving in that direction of just hearing the voice of God so intentionally, plus what's happening in the community. And that's what I love so much about your church as well. You are in the community, and the community is part of you. Suddenly, I'm recognizing our community desperately needs us, desperately needs us. And we've been apart, we've been doing everything we know to do, but it has ramped up to a whole new level because how much the church is there. And I even heard our prime minister say, we've got to come along and support nonprofits right now because we cannot do what we're called to do as a country without them. We have to make a way for them to stay sustainable during the season. And I think we see that in our society, which Canada is a very post-Christian society, suddenly it's become so married, how we need one another. It can't just be a separation. There is a need to operate together. And I see that happening in the most magnificent way right now.
That's exciting, isn't it? That's really exciting, that new relationship's building. Really good, really good.
Hey, I'd love to have you on one time, maybe in the future, because you transitioned the whole church as well, hadn't you, to your daughter, which was, I don't know how long you did that over, but we'd love to hear more about that. But does it feel like such a time as this moment for her in her leadership?
Absolutely. I'm just amazed that she is so wise. And I think, when she took the reins, it could have been because I want to continue what mom and dad did. So it could have been, we could have been part of the reason behind it. And I think that all got stripped away. I think now, she wakes up in tears sometimes because of the load, the stress, the importance of what she gets to be part of. And it's caused her to have to lean into God like never before. And I'm just so proud of her and what she's doing, and her husband, her, and, the whole team. I think these days are causing us to turn to God. It's amazing. Every revival follows crisis. Why? Because crisis causes us to turn to God, cry out to him. And he tells us when we cry out to him, he answers. And this is a crisis for local churches all over the world, but it's a crisis globally, where we're all in this together. And never before have we had a global crisis. So I'm expecting global revival, and it's going to be as a result of this.
Amen. Wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, we're with you. We totally agree. We've been amazed at the level of prayer that's come from within the church and risen up, spontaneously, not organized, but just happening. It's wonderful to see. And again, in the midst of revival, or when it's always a precursor, we think, to that. So wonderful to see. Interesting days.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. One day we'll have you back in person.
We look forward to it, but really what a unique season we're in, but it was such a highlight for us to get to come and get to know you more and to see your beautiful church. And we're very grateful for this connection.
The only thing that was so disappointing was how come it took us so long to it's like long lost friends. Like we were
felt like family.
And I've heard since you met me, John, you've been trying to grow a beard because you were so impressed.
To look like you.
I'm trying to look like you, except for I'm going to keep as much on the top as I can.
He's working on it. But,
I'd have had as much as you. I'd have kept it.
It's brilliant to see you guys again. Really is.
We do love you. There's a real heart joining. Thank you so much. We're going to end now, but thank you for being with us. And we always say this at the end of our Unshakable show. Don't forget, we are
C3 wherever we are. We love you guys. See you soon.
God bless you.